Welcome to GW2NAGVG episode 3, and this is Kyle the Savage, and I know I've taken a little bit longer than I thought I would to come out with these videos. I thought I was going to kind of do them on a maybe every other week basis, and it hasn't really been that way, and it's partly my fault because I'm just busier than I thought I was going to be, but it's also because I'm not having a lot of gameplay sent to me. So if you do have gameplay and it's kind of somewhere between 15 to 25 minutes long, and it's of especially backline classes, especially gank, anything from a thief, anything from a mesmer, anything from a necro, anything from any gank class at all would be super awesome. Thanks, guys. And today we're gonna be watching a warrior gameplay from a warrior in ER, Endless Revere. And they're going to be fighting a guild called ASAP Localize is the name of the guild. And let's get into it. Alright, we finally have a warrior gameplay to take a look at, which I'm pretty excited about. I'm actually probably going to have a pretty hard time with this gameplay because there's a lot of things that I want to say about warrior and not enough time to say them all, so if I get kind of sidetracked or go into a lot of detail about something, I'm sorry about that, but I'm going to start by just kind of going over the two weapon sets that the Shout Warrior uses. There's the sword and horn, and then there's the hammer as the second weapon set. The sword and horn is good for a lot of things. Firstly, as you just saw right there, he was able to leap in. The sword 2 skill is a 600 range leap on an 8-second cooldown, which is very fast cooldown for a leap skill. It provides a lot of mobility. You have the ability to leap into enemies, as you see right here, as well as leap out if you're taking damage or pushed in deeper than you should have, and you need to get a way of coming back before you get singled out by your enemy. The third skill on sword is Final Thrust, which should be followed by Flurry every time, in my opinion. It's a very good skill. It's especially good on downstates and on players with less than 50% health, but to be honest with you, it's worth using every single time you're in that weapon set. And then the war horn is part of what makes the Shout Warrior as good as he is. We have a trait that provides changes a condition to a boon every time you use the war horn, and also the war horn does cure immobilize, crippled, chill. It's just a really good party wide Condi removal. Now, one thing is with the stability changes, what we really want to do is we don't want to just use our horn willy-nilly. We want to save it for times when our party is under Condi pressure. If you take a look at in this person's character in the top left of the screen, there's his party information there, and you can see when Condis go onto your party, and that's when you should be using, Shake It Off, which is one of the utility skills there. That's also when you should be using your horn in order to cleanse those Condis. If you use your horn 4 and horn 5 pretty much just every time you swap to the weapon and just kind of use it randomly, you're going to end up not cleansing any Condis a lot of the time, and in that case it's kind of worthless, especially with the changes to stability. This gameplay was made or done right before the change to stability happened, I believe. However, with the changes to stability, it's that much more important that we, as warriors, we time our warhorn effectively and use it to where it's actually doing something rather than just keep giving us swiftness duration. In terms of our hammers are definitely our main damage dealing weapon. In my opinion, you should really never be using sword 1 to deal damage unless you're just waiting for the timer to swap to hammer, which shouldn't happen very often because I'm going to interrupt myself right here. He uses the sword to leap away and get back to his group when he got caught out. That was a good job of him right there. If he's playing a very experienced group, he's going to have much less success doing that because if they see a warrior caught out, they're going to focus that warrior because the warrior doesn't have any block, any burst heal. It's really just a matter of positioning and the leaps and the stability, but damage wise there's not really too much prevention. What I was saying about hammer though is hammer's definitely going to be the main damage dealing component of this build. It's also going to be the build It's also going to be the weapon that uses a lot of CC. So the hammer really is, yes, it's there to do damage, but it's also there to knock people off their feet so that the damage that's coming in behind you can be as effective as possible. So don't think of yourself as, I need to kill this guy. I need to kill this guy right now. Think of yourself as, I need to immobilize this guy, or I need to, knock him down and keep him stun locked so that the Guardians and the Necros and, Elementals and all those other classes can come in and deal the damage necessary to put that player in the down state. In terms of the warrior, the hammer weapons, hammer skills specifically, my rotation, the best way to do it, in my opinion, would be if you want to start with hammer stun, you can, but if you have full adrenaline, in my opinion, you should be using flurry over hammer stun. Flurry is the F1 skill or the burst skill on sword. And what it does is it immobilizes players for a long duration. It actually immobilizes up to 3 players for a long duration. This warrior, if you haven't noticed already, he doesn't cancel his flurry, which is something you should be doing. The immobilize goes off the moment you press the F1 button for the flurry. You don't have to let the full duration go like as he did just there. It does stack more bleed, and it also does do a little bit more damage, but it's really not worth doing, especially because in GVG the bleeds come off pretty quickly, especially because everyone's running minus Condi food, and the extra damage just isn't worth doing. By swapping to hammer or throwing out a final thrust, you're going to do 3 times as much damage. Right here, his team just kind of got ran over. His driver got ran over. They were kind of in a bad position. They needed to dodge out earlier. This warrior does do a pretty good job of using his hammer. He needs to use flurry a lot more and not let the duration go. One thing about warrior is, because we're able to swap weapons so many times and so quickly, there's no disadvantage in the moment you have full adrenaline just throwing your flurry down, throwing your hammer stun down, and waiting for the next rotation to go off. Because it's pointless to, if you've been fighting for 30 seconds and you've been at full adrenaline for 30 seconds, you've wasted 3, maybe 4 flurries or hammer stuns that you could have done, as long as you're engaged with the enemy, of course. Another thing that this warrior, not trying to hate on him, he's not a bad player at all. He stays in good position to his commander, and lays hammer stuns pretty well. One thing that he does that I would have him change if I were coaching him or something would be he kind of pops a lot of his utilities at the same time. He often pops Shake It Off and For Great Justice at the same time. For Great Justice really should be used off cooldown. If you're going for a regroup, then save it so that you can have the most uptime on the flurry and the might, fury. I'm sorry, and the might. But try not to use them at the same time, because it's really just a waste. Don't use it as a panic button to get yourself healed. Use For Great Justice off cooldown pretty much, and then use Shake It Off to cleanse conditions from your party. If you're gonna use, try to not use it as a selfish stun breaker. However, if you're gonna die, then of course use it and save yourself. But it's one of those things that's really for the party. He has Dolyak's Signet there, which is... Oh, I'm sorry. This is made after the stability changes. I just saw that go down right now. So it's good that he is using Dolyak's Signet. The reason he's using Dolyak's Signet instead of Balance Stance is because Dolyak's Signet gives 10 stacks of stability, whereas Balance Stance only gives 5. But basically, in my opinion, the rotation that you do want to use, that you should be using, is... You should be leaping in, assuming your commander's going aggressive, you should be leaping in, flurrying off of that leap, canceling the flurry, going into final thrust, and then by that time you should be able to switch to hammer. And because of Cleansing Ire, which is a trait that the warriors have that gives adrenaline whenever they're being hit, and in a GVG you're constantly getting attacked, whether it's doing lots of damage or not, but you're running through things, you're getting ticks of damage off, you get adrenaline for that. And a lot of the time, after you leap in, flurry, final thrust, you can switch to your hammer and immediately hammer stun, which is really good because you can hammer stun someone that you just flurried, which is kind of overpowered if you think about it. After the hammer stun, or basically you just want to use your full hammer cycle, which would be using pretty much all of the skills. Stag Blow, the fourth skill, is kind of one that's a variant, because sometimes you want to use it effectively and knock enemies into your bomb, not out of your bomb, because it's very easy to use Stag Blow to knock an enemy out of damage that your Necro just laid down, which is not what you want to do. You want to be pushing them into the damage, which you can use Stag Blow for, but you just have to be careful of when you use it and how you use it. The Earthshaker, the 5 skill, is a very, very effective single target skill. It's great on down states. It's also great on, see how he's using his banner right here? He's waiting for that player to go down. He sees that they were going to go down. He canceled it, though. That was a really good play by him, especially if you're the, I know I'm going sidetracked on the banner now, but if you know that you're the first banner and you are, the next one in line to use that skill and whatever else, if your team has a rotation going and you're next, you should not only be just making sure that you get through the push, but that everyone gets through the push. Because if someone else doesn't, then they become your responsibility to res them. So make sure that if you're banner 1 or if you're the next in line to use your banner, make sure that when you push through push through a bomb or push through the enemy, that you have your look around key, or you can get in a good position to see that, make sure that everyone got through. Because if you can do that and you can get the banner precasted like he was doing there, the chances that it doesn't land are reduced significantly, rather than you trying to 180, turn around, find the downstate, drop the AoE, and then hope that it lands in time. It's much less likely to be good. Banners is one thing that really separates a warrior that is good from a warrior that is really, really great. If they can consistently land banners and make sure that their team stays at maximum players for as long as possible, then they're going to have a much better chance of surviving. If you can land let's say you're running 4 warriors in a 20v20 comp, if your first 4 banners can land and you maintain your group at 20v20 way longer than theirs do, then your chances of survival just increase tremendously. He's getting pretty messed up right here. Something that happens all the time to warriors is he was casting his banner there on his driver, and there wasn't really anywhere for him to go. He could have pushed through, which is what he should have done, and gone kind of past the commander. But it's hard to do. There's not really a lot of places to go, and he just kind of got caught out. Right there, he did a good job leaping and then flurrying on Necros. That's something that every warrior really should be doing. Necromancer doesn't have any type of self-stability, or a lot of the time don't even have a stun breaker. So if you get them in a flurry, they're pretty much just sitting ducks for the remaining of that duration. So if you have the rest of the front line following behind you, and you just got a good flurry down on a Necro, that Necro has a very, very little chance of surviving. This warrior, aside from he lets the flurry duration go, and he oftentimes pops his utilities at the same time. But other than that, he does a pretty good job. Sometimes he pushes beyond where he needs to push, but he's not getting punished for it, and that might be due to him being really quick, but it also might be due to him not fighting a group that's really good at focusing down single players. For example, in the highest tier, if you're a warrior and you push beyond where you're supposed to push and you're caught out, you're going to get targeted very, very quickly, because they know that the warrior doesn't have any burst heal or any block to really stop any damage from coming through. Your best option is just to pop your stealth stability and use your sword 2 to leap away, and hope they didn't get you in time, basically. In terms of build, there's a couple different standard builds, standard trait setups that are run here. Most Shout Warriors at this point are running 00464. There's also a 00563 variant. The 5 in gosh, I can't remember now, defense, I think, gives you 10% of your toughness as power, which is a really strong stat. I mean, a really strong trait, especially for it being a passive one. However, what you lose is Destruction of the Empowered. And Destruction of the Empowered gives you a percentage of damage based on how many boons the player has. And in the GVG setting, I think most players have found at this point that Destruction of the Empowered overall does more damage because of the amount of boons that are going out. This is a very party-oriented game mode. If you take a look at the party right now, the least amount of boons that any of the players have in this player's party right now is 6. And in that case, that's 6 times 3, that's 18% more damage, which is way more than what armored attack would give you, which is the based on toughness trait. He does do a really good job of, he lands, his leaps are good. He's leaping and he's landing in the right places when he leaps. If he was canceling his flurry and popping for final thrust and then switching to hammer, he could really single out a target and just completely destroy him, which is something that's so powerful in the warrior. Because you have that cleansing ire and can gain the adrenaline, you can leap in, flurry, final thrust, switch to hammer, get off your whole hammer rotation on someone, and at that point, if they're not dead, then your teammates just aren't doing enough damage. As a warrior, we want to have, this is part of this goes to opinion based. You know, some guilds and players like to run a little bit tankier, a little bit glassier. In my opinion, as a warrior, you want somewhere between 2800 and 2950 toughness, something in that range. As much power and crit chance and damage as possible. What most do is, and what I do is, I have either, you know, you kind of mix and match. You have some Zerker gear mixed with some soldier gear mixed with some Knight's gear is pretty popular. That's what I do on my warrior. It really just depends on what your you know, what team build, what team comp your group is trying to run. If you are you know, if you have 5, 6, you know, 6 would be kind of drastic. 5 warriors, your warriors can run a little bit glassier because there's more banners and things like that. But if you're one of 3 warriors in a 15v15 comp, you really don't want to run, you know, 2500 armor and get blown up by a well or something like that. Overall, as a group, ER does not do a bad job. They seem to see he had a player targeted there. There's something to take note of. When we leap, if you have a target, it's going to leap toward your target, which if you're trying to leap away from their group and you still have someone targeted and you leap back into them, you're pretty much assuring yourself that you're going to die. That happens all the time, and it's kind of embarrassing. But make sure that before you leap, you know, uncall your target by either clicking away or using, you know, if you have something binded for untarget. But as I was saying, ER here is doing a pretty good job. They're definitely, you know, winning these fights. And the reason why is, you know, basically there's just a little bit more cohesive than what ASAP is. ASAP is leaping in, doing damage, but CER is going to kite them away here, turn back, hopefully. Now they're going to keep kiting, but see, now they're going to go in and push, and you see his leaps are good. If he had flurried there, he had enough adrenaline to flurry. If you cancel your flurry fast enough, you can leap in, cancel the flurry before you even made yourself noticed in that location. And if you can do that, then you're going to, you know, survive a pretty long time. But I know I didn't talk a lot about this gameplay in general because I really had a lot of stuff to say about Warrior. And I'm sorry about that, but overall, this is not a bad player at all. See right here, he pops his two utilities together. If I were to give any critiques to this player, it would be a little bit better positioning. Don't push past the commander. Definitely work on canceling the flurries and saving your utility skills for when they're supposed to be used. And using the hammer a little bit more effectively, and also using final thrust. He pretty much never uses final thrust, and it's a really, really powerful skill. It does lots of damage to downstates, especially if you hit a downstate with final thrust. It can hit sometimes, you know, 7-8k, and in that case, that's pretty much, you know, just taking the downstate from, you know, whatever he's at to 0. And if you have all 4 of your warriors final thrusting on downstates, they pretty much just, you know, the downstate just melts. And that's what we want to do, and that's what we're trying to do as warriors. But I think this is about to wrap up. Thanks for watching, guys. After watching this back after I finished recording, I realized that I never mentioned anything about the Horn 5 skill or the Earthshaker, the burst skill on hammer being a blast finisher. You can watch through the video. This player actually does a really, really good job of blasting water fields with the Horn 5, and sometimes even using Earthshaker to do it as well. When an Elementalist drops a water field, the warrior should be using Horn 5 to blast it to heal up his allies. Something that we used to do as warriors was we would double blast. We would blast it with Earthshaker and then switch to the Horn set and blast it with the Horn and get a double blast. That's not as effective anymore because they changed the way Earthshaker works. Earthshaker now, when you use it, you used to have to hit something for your adrenaline to expire. Now, if you use it and you hit nothing, your adrenaline expires. So if you really need the health, then use the double blast. But if not, then you really should just be using the Horn. Don't waste your adrenaline on blasting the water. I just felt really stupid after watching this that I didn't mention anything like that, so I had to include it. Thanks, guys. By the way, if you have any, I know I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but that's the end of the gameplay there from ER. If you have any gameplay, especially anything from a backline class or gank, I would really appreciate those videos. They're kind of few and far between. I'm asking friends and stuff for videos. So if you do have any, please send them to me and I'll continue to make these videos. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to like the video or subscribe or whatever you can do in whatever context you're watching the video. Thanks, guys. Bye.